Well, my name is Ashley Street, and I am the CEO and founder of Rank Monsters. We specialize in managing Google Ad Grants. I actually started the company in 2011 as a contractor, and my specialty actually started with search engine optimization. I always wanted to work with nonprofits. That was a passion. And I prayed about it and I prayed about it. And specifically, I wanted to work with orphanages and I wanted to go and work there with them. But I really didn't have the skill sets. Like, I can't build, I'm not a teacher in that way. So I just continued to pray to God, like, how are you going to use SEO skills to help impact the world and specifically nonprofits? Before I could know it, we were working with hundreds of nonprofits. We stumbled across the ad grant specifically for one client looking how to further their mission through Google Ads because they had a limited budget. We went down that path and got it for them. And it worked out so well that they started referring us to their network and we just grew from there. And so that was all between about 2011 and 2013. At that time, we started working with hundreds of nonprofits. And in 2018, Google contacted us to participate in a special training to learn how to maximize the ad grant for grantees. So we were actually one of the original 9 agencies that were certified by Google to manage Google ad grants. When I say that we're proud to be part of that certified network, we are just extremely proud. As I shared with you, we're a small company, fairly small company that is headquartered in Oklahoma. We're part of a network with 46 other agencies around the world that share this certification. And the one thing we all have in common is we work with hundreds and hundreds of nonprofits. We all have a specialty in Google Ad Grants, and we all are part of the certified agency network. So what kind of stands Rank Monsters out a little bit is our background in search engine optimization. And that's really what helps us get the most out of the campaigns that we create and manage. Hopefully, most of you, if not all of you, are 501c3 nonprofits. The grant that we're talking about today is specifically for 501c3 nonprofits. I'm going to talk a little bit just briefly about what Google Ad Grants is before we kind of jump into the next part to make sure we're all on the same page. Google Ad Grants is a $10,000 monthly grant from Google to spend on Google Ads. It is essentially a credit that once approved goes directly into your Google Ad campaign. That credit is used on Google Ads. When you go to Google and you enter a keyword in the search, at the top are ads, at the top of the search results, above the organic search. This $10,000 monthly grant allows your organization to basically advertise at the top of the search result for Google and get your message out to your target audience. Applying for the ad grant is free. So I mentioned that Rank Monsters were one of the 46 certified agencies, and there are a lot of other agencies that also manage ad grants. You can use an agency, but you can also pursue ad grants on your own. It is a free program offered by Google to help you basically market your mission online. I hope everybody kind of understood what Google Ad Grants is and what text ads are. This presentation, I'm kind of briefly showing you, and we're going to jump back and forth between the presentation and our faces so that we can have a conversation and so it's not boring. With us today is Dr. PJ Dunn, which is one of our customers and friends, and he is utilizing Google Ad Grants. He is going to tell us hopefully more about his wonderful ministry and their goals, and also how he's utilizing ad grants. My hope is that in hearing his story, it's going to help you see how you might also use this program for your own mission. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. PJ Dunn to introduce himself.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. It's exciting to be with you all today. I really do enjoy meeting other leaders and seeing what your passions are is always really super exciting. And so thank you for taking time. Everybody's time is important. So what we do at Table for One Ministries is that we really advocate for singles. And so couple of years ago now, right? Almost 13 years ago, the Lord really spoke to me and said, hey, I'm calling you to ministry, not a paycheck. And that's where this started. It started with, we want singles to be seen in their communities. And so what we're doing is we're advancing the gospel to the single adult through the churches, through discipleship. And so what does that look like? What are all those words to say? Because singles is kind of a stuffy word. People that are single don't want to be called single. Churches don't really like using the word single. So why in the world? We'll come back to that, Ashley, in a little bit of like, why would we even use that word in understanding our customer? But a little bit about me. So I'm originally from Ohio. Everywhere behind me is places I've lived. So if you see somewhere on there, that's because I've moved 32 times as I talk to you today. So I have lived in a lot of different places. That's just kind of how ministry has gone. And now I'm in North Georgia. And Table for One starts out of a passion. And that passion is to help equip churches. So when we define singles, we define it in 8 different ways. Collegiate singles, 18 to 22, right? We are just graduating high school, very different age. And then you have people in that same age group that are like not college, right? So the average age for a college student, 25. So you can't just say college students are 18 to 22 because that's just not the case. Over 60% of people never complete college that start. So to see people, you have to know some of these data points. Then we have singles 22 and older. It's the only other age group that has any kind of a number or qualifier on it, but it makes up 62% of all singles in America. So most singles are never married singles in America. Why is that important? Because 52% of all adults are single. So singles outnumber married adults in America. And so if we're going to reach our communities, we have to know our demographics. Real quickly, the other one's dating. You're either dating or you're not. So you either have like 5 apps installed on your phone and your aunt buys you an eHarmony subscription at Christmas, or you don't. There's 2 different stages there. And then you're engaged. The average length of engagement is 15 months in America. In churches, it sometimes feels like 15 days, but it's very different where people are. And most people will cohabitate at least once before they get married. So understanding who the demographic is helps our churches reach people. Divorced singles, so 45% of all first-time marriages end in divorce. So what you end up with is a young adult population who is single, dating, engaged, and divorced, and single parents. And so then 40% of all families in America are single parent families. So when we say we want to reach the family unit in our communities, we need to reach that single parent. And then we have widows. The average age for a widow is 57. And same-sex attraction, making sure that everybody is seen in our community no matter where they're at. And so that is Table for One. We have 2 distinct lanes. We minister to the single adult, and we minister to leaders of single adults. And if any of you have tried to work on messaging for your nonprofit, you know that this becomes really hard because everybody says, what's your one target? And I'm like, I don't have one target. I have 2 distinct targets, the leaders of leaders and the actual person that we're trying to talk to. So when we connected with Rank Monsters, they really got that. And I can just tell you that I've connected with other organizations that are like, pick one. And I'm like, I can't pick one. Like I distinctly do both. And I'll talk more about what our functions are when we talk about conversions and why this, has really helped us. But anyhow, that's a little bit about Table for One Ministries and kind of our passion. And when we say singles and we say marriage isn't the finish line, Ashley, that's kind of where we come from.
Wow, well, that's a great mission in empowering singles in Christ. And you do have a very big audience to reach online, which we do know firsthand.
Yeah.
So we're going to kind of have a question and answer, and I think that will keep it more fun. So my first question for you is, we've actually been actively managing your ad grant campaign since last November. So about 5 months now. And in November, we were able to spend $6,000 of the available ad grant. And since then, each month, we've almost maxed it out, spending the full $10,000. So my question for you is, what has that impact been on your ministry? Like, yes, it's traffic to your website. Yes, you're spending this available grant, but what is the actual impact?
Yeah. So all of us sit in a different seat when we're advocating for our nonprofit on this call or this recording or whatever you're watching. And so if you want to put your distinctive kind of category in the chat, that's helpful for us to kind of address too. But for us, the real result is that we're seeing real people at the end of the pipeline have transformed lives. And so we are connecting with people we never would have met if we weren't using the Google ad grant. And so to me, all the tech is great. Fun logos, awesome, right? Like we have the coolest lobby, we have the coolest things, we have the greatest memes, everybody laughs. All those things are great, everybody. But we all know that life transformation is where it's at. And so what we want to see is that real person. And so since we've partnered with Ashley and her team, the reason that I'm excited to be on today is because I can honestly tell you that we're reaching more churches. So one thing that we do is that we hold catalytic events. And so we believe that the local church is the community for a single adult. So we'll come in, host a catalytic event, help the local church connect local singles, and then the next step is discipleship. Get connected in community, get into a Bible study, plug into a local community. So we have now seen new customers come from doing the advertisement that reach out and say, I didn't even know you existed or that this even happened, which nobody really is looking for us, right? Everybody's looking for the fun things like marriages and families and, all these other terms. But they don't go look for like, how do we get more singles in our church? Like they're not asking that question. So when the advertising grant helps get us in front of other people in that line of search results, we're getting real customers on the other side of that. And so customers for us is seeing churches empowered. So we've had churches like a church in Missouri that we've been able to connect with and actually go on site, do an event, and meet real people that wouldn't have come otherwise. And so that's where rubber hits the road, where this isn't just about spending Google's free money. This really isn't just about, now, how much is this going to cost me and what's my ROI? Like it really is about, are we in this for life transformation or not? And we're actually starting to see those stories come up, Ashley, through this campaign.
Well, that's great news. Yeah, so a few things you touched on. One, I just want to let you all know, $10,000 a month to spend on Google Ads is a lot of money to spend on advertisement. And that basically translates anywhere between 500 to around 1,500 new users to your website. So part of what we do with our customers is kind of really focus in on who their target audience is. And as PJ mentioned, that is the single adult and also church leaders. So we have two different target audiences, and you reach them both in very different ways. So obviously, step one is we want to make sure we're utilizing the available grant and getting the most out of it. But step two is we want to make sure that that is converting into some kind of action that's important to our customers. And for PJ, that's a connection. And he's been able to make some connections. So that makes us really, really happy and really proud. So you did tell us a little bit about a connection you made with a church, but are there any other connections that you've made from this program that you would like to share on? If not, that's okay.
Yeah, no, I'll share specifically like the one person at the end of the line, because I think that's the best, like real example. So to understand why I'm so passionate about this, just know that my day job is that I work for the Georgia Baptist Mission Board. We serve 3,400 churches in Georgia. I'm a discipleship consultant. And so I first and foremost go into local churches and help them make disciples, whatever that looks like in whatever capacity. That's what I do during the day. So Table for One is not the money that comes into our family. In fact, we give towards it. So when I go do these events, Ashley, it's because we're advocating so that we can reach more people, and that's raising funds. So I'm actually just out there doing fundraising. So when I'm out at the one in Missouri and we talk about being complete in Christ is to trust, know, and reflect Jesus, and that nothing will complete you except Christ. And so what you need to be in is community. That's the takeaway. And this lady comes up to me afterwards, and it's real quiet. It's real somber, right? And she comes up to me and she goes, somebody invited me to this event, but I went home like I do every Friday night. I opened a bottle of alcohol and I poured myself a drink like I do every Friday night. And I looked at my drink and I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. And she thought, I'm going to go to that invite, to that singles thing. And for a person that we've never met to make that choice requires a lot of intentional actions. They don't just stumble into that for the most part. Like we have to be leaders who are thinking about how to get into that person's world so they don't pour another drink, but they find the living water. And so she comes to the event and she says, this is where it's at. And she said, I don't want to drink anymore, right? Like, I don't want to turn to that anymore. And that's a real person in Missouri who is really connected to a real church with real people now because we used Google's money to help advance our mission. Like, I love that. Like it, and honestly, they know we're doing it. So it's not like secret, right? Like, this is what they know we are doing. And there's a lot of cynicism that comes. Like, what if I say, hey, we're using Google's, ad grant, and somebody sends me like an article on how evil like Google is, or somebody is, or like about how AI is scary, or VR, just, it's like you name it, right? So everybody's real cynical. And I'm like, yeah, but Paul said, be all things to all people so that some would come to know him. And we use the printing press for good and not evil too, but it can also be used for evil. So I think it's about using the tools that are in front of you to advance your mission. And so some of you are in the faith community. Some of you may not be in the faith community. I don't mean to make it all about that, but I'm helping churches now get connected that are local, like here in Dalton came up. Like that, I do have a church in Dalton that I said, hey, you need to talk to Rank Monsters, because they could help you get more people at Easter. They can help you get more people at your VBS event. They can help you get more people. Like, they're asking the questions. So hear me when I'm bragging on them, because they're not paying me to say this. Like, I genuinely love what they're doing. I'm helping churches, local churches, connect to a Google ad grant to get people that would never see them otherwise to walk in the door. That's their conversion. Our conversion in Table for One is to connect the single adult and the leader to the resources that they need to do what God's called them to do. So we have different goals, but they're asking the questions. And then, Ashley, you can talk about the different levels of involvement there too, and how your team gets involved. I don't want to like do the spoil alert early on what you're talking about, but tell them about the different ways that y'all ask questions in different levels.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a discovery meeting. So in our discovery meeting, we'll meet with your organization, and basically we're doing fact finding. So we're going with you through your website so that we can identify basically who your target audience is, what your goals are, what pages might need to be created, what pages might need to be moved, figuring out how to reach your target audience. We do use your website for the landing pages of the ads. So this is where we're going to talk to you about potentially creating new landing pages. If you're wanting to reach a specific audience, but you don't have a page for it, we might need to have that done. Also, Google ad grants, it's essentially free money from Google. And so because of that, the ad grant campaigns are taking space away from paid advertisers as well. And in order to do that effectively and get top placement and advertise for the keywords that you want to advertise for, we have to have a quality campaign. And that comes down to the landing page, the keywords used, and the conversion actions. I said this earlier, but we don't want to just send people to your website. We want to make sure that you're capturing and making that connection. And really, so does Google. Part of the certification and qualifications is to have a high quality campaign with meaningful conversions. And so during our discovery meeting, we just really think through that and discover that together with your team so that we can lay out a campaign for you. We then lay everything out and present it to your team to review and edit.
Yeah, actually.
Something I was thinking about, not to jump kind of off topic, but something I did want to say is that Rank Monsters, we actually work with so many Christian nonprofits. We work with Voice of the Martyr, Museum of the Bible. We work with over 200 pregnancy centers, all kinds of Christian organizations and camps. Because of our certification, and specifically in our year of training to learn how to maximize the ad grant for grantees, we developed a very close relationship with the Google Ad Grant team. And they absolutely know that we specialize and work with Christian organizations. And there was never any conflict with that. They were actually always very helpful with us working on the campaigns, because there's different certifications that we have to apply for to advertise for different types of keywords. And the partnership there has always been lovely. Like, there is no problem for Christian organizations to utilize the ad grant. I did see a question in here that we'll get to at the end about some of the questions in the application process, and we will talk about that.
Yeah, I was going to say, hey, it's me, I'm the problem. Okay, so let me back up a little bit and say, why in the world would I pay for someone to help me do this. So, I mean, almost 8 years ago, I got accepted for this ad grant. This is not something that's new. Like Ashley was saying, when she discovered it, man, I was pretty early on too. And I'm like, this is easy. This is easy money, right? And so I say yes, and I go through all the applications, I get approved, and I start trying to make advertisements. And so I do what anybody who's not good at something tries to do. So I break it. And so I decide, okay, well, I'll just make a couple, like one ad, and then I'll just throw every bit of money at it, and then I'll spend all the money, and then I won't have to ever look at this again, because that's what we're doing. We're doing too many things to focus on this, right? And so it turns out that Google knew that we would do that. And so I think they made PJ rules along the way. And so the PJ rules kind of come up along where you have to utilize a certain percentage, and people have to actually be clicking on it, and it has to be meaningful. And so we find ourselves just before COVID trying to partner with somebody else who didn't really get our mission. They didn't understand us. And so they were trying to help us, and they were running their ads, but it really wasn't our win. And so the click-through rate wasn't really a real person at the end of it. So I'm like, no, we're not. Well, in the middle of that, COVID hits. And somewhere in between COVID hitting and me checking on it again, we get suspended. And I think, well, this can't be hard. I'll just reapply, right? Like, unsuspend me, Google. So I mess with that for about 6 or 9 months before I get to this point where I'm in a hotel, I'm traveling, I speak, most Sunday mornings, travel around the country. So I'm on the move, and I'm in a hotel room, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Like, the Lord has broke me on using Google Ad Grants. I can't get unsuspended. I keep getting these auto emails. And I find Rank Monsters. And when I get connected to them, I say their prices are much more reasonable than almost anybody else out there. Their service looks like they're really caring and that they're going to connect with us. And so how do I get unsuspended? And so I go into help me fix it. Like, here's some money because I can't do this anymore. And y'all, they worked for months to get our account unsuspended. Not everybody's that way, right, Ashley? There's a new PJ rule. Like, everybody knew who I was because, again, I'm the problem. And so somebody had asked a content question before, and I can tell you that our suspension was we weren't utilizing it, so we deserved to be shut down per their terms. But then there was a question of our content. So if y'all were listening to our types of single adults, I'm not ashamed of who I feel like God's called us to reach, but not everybody uses the same words that we use. And through the discovery process with Rank Monsters, what we found is that we want to have the right conversation online and the right conversation in person. And so we decided to make our messaging clearer online, which actually did align with what they were requesting. And for us, it was a win-win because, I mean, they are giving you a resource. But in my scope, and maybe you've run into this, Ashley, and you can speak to this, the church that's saying, come learn about Jesus, that's not getting them shut down. It's they're not upset with your faith or denomination. It doesn't matter what, your faith background is. What they're looking for is a different set there. And so the scariness of Google, I would say, is not as much there as I thought it was. But you can speak to that because you do this all day long.
I'm not going to speak directly to that topic because there are some rules and regulations around keywords and the type of keywords that we can advertise for. And like I said earlier, when we come up against some of those, we sometimes have to apply for certifications in order to run ads for specific keywords. And we do that all the time. But as you mentioned, you came to us with a suspended account, which actually happens a lot. We have a lot of customers that come to us with suspended accounts. And because we completely understand the qualifications, we're able to look at your account, look at your website, and be able to determine what needs to be fixed there or what needs to be done to even qualify for the ad grant. So before applying for the ad grant, you need to make sure that you have a high quality website, that your 501c3 information is in the footer. There are things that need to be done to make sure the approval process goes smoothly. And so with your campaign, there were multiple things, like the website needed to be changed slightly. And also, because you weren't actively managing your ad account, some of your ad groups had fallen below that 5% click-through rate. And so there were some things that needed to be changed. Because of our partnership with the certified network agency, we're able to kind of bring those topics up to that community and to Google Ad Grants internally and get things done quickly and resolved. And so we were able to do that with your campaign and get you up and running.
Yeah,
and
she's being really sweet. She's being really sweet, you guys. Like, here what happened. I broke it. I said in the chair you're in, I took the money and I knew I could do it on my own and I couldn't. And you know, I have an IT background. I've done that with churches for over 10 years, been the IT director and singles pastor, and now serve at the state level. And I like to think I can pretty much figure some of those things out. Like I'm a little savvy in that area. I'm not a novice. And this one really needed help, and they really did fix it. And I didn't think they could. Like, I thought, y'all, they have this like money back guarantee, you know, like we'll do it. And I'm like, yeah, they're not going to do it. Right. Like, there's no way they're going to get, but they did. So if your account is suspended, they really truly are experts. And I believe in what they do. But if you're looking for, you know, just that X factor, right? Like how can I get more people connected? I'll stop talking there. I could probably talk the whole time. That's what preachers do, right? They just talk too much.
You're doing great. Well, we've covered a lot of topics. I guess a question I have for you is, and I'm going to kind of go back to sharing a little bit, is this is your ad grant results. I hope you're okay with me sharing it.
Yeah, well, I am now. It's happening. Yeah, so.
I forgot to do that. So, and this shows how much we've been able to spend since November. And also, obviously, spending the available grant is really important. But making real connections is the most important thing, and making sure that you are connecting with your target audience through that.
Yeah.
And I saw somebody ask about seeing ads. I actually don't have ad examples in here, but I will add it to the presentation when I send it all to you so you can see what an ad looks like. But the process of creating ads, again, is going through your website and identifying landing pages that we're going to use. Because when somebody clicks on that ad, it takes them to that page on your website. And so the ad that's created is relevant to the keyword that they just searched and also to the page that they're going to be landing on. So that then we're making sure that it's connecting with the right target audience to take the intended action, you know, to complete the form, to make the phone call, to sign up for the newsletter, to complete the survey, whatever the conversion action is. And that's something that we help you with in your discovery meeting. We identify what that action could be.
Yeah.
So you've been able to spend over $34,000 since November. And so we're basically spending the full amount of the ad. I guess my question for you is, as you continue to work with us and we continue to refine results, where are you wanting to take this? Like, how do you see this growing? How do you see this continuing to impact your organization?
Yeah, it's the advocacy part that I think is really where we're going to go this year. So I'm currently working on optimizing more blogs with the right keywords that people are asking. And so when I can write a blog, for instance, loneliness is a great example. So people are typing in, I'm lonely, or is there something to help me with loneliness? Can church help me with my loneliness? So when you start looking at all the data points of how people are Google searching, then you can tailor your content a little bit more to what they're asking and answer it. So we're addressing loneliness and blogs and blog posts because we know that 50% of America is lonely. If you look at the U.S. Surgeon General's research, the last 2 years, he's issued the research on the biggest epidemic facing our country is loneliness. The rates of loneliness have doubled since 1980. So it's not just a COVID problem. Like, our country is more lonely than it's ever been. And so how are we going to connect those people together? Loneliness, by the way, is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day for your health. Like, it really is terrible and it's killing people. So now the CDC is involved because they're saying it's how are we going to address this problem of people having loneliness? And so, you know, Little Table for One Ministries over here is saying it's called community, right? Like, we address this in a different way. We say, be a friend worth having. That's what we put on some things. Like we want people to have that community because it's important. So we're addressing loneliness, but it really is hitting a huge portion of the population. So for the local church or faith community or anybody maybe that's tuning in with that lens, the whole report ends with the faith community is the number one way the government believes they can solve the loneliness epidemic. It's not a pill. It's not a government agency. Like, it believes the faith community is the answer. So things like this are really good to say, okay, so my church in Atlanta, Georgia could be like, I'm lonely in Atlanta, and make a targeted landing page that uses the Google Ad Grant to get you to come to an online event, or to get you to take a next step, to get you to fill out a prayer card, to get you to, like, that's what we're talking about with those next steps for like a local church environment, and thinking about, okay, now that I saw the person, like, how do I really get them to the goal? And so it's been fun, because I think that's phase 2 for us is to really dive into what are those words. And I'm going to say it as quick as possible, but singles hate being called single, but that's what they type into Google. They don't type in young adults near me. That's what we learned in this process. Like, there are phrases we think, especially in the faith community, that people say about themselves and they don't. And so we learned that people type singles conferences, names for singles ministries, like all kinds of fun data, when we actually said, okay, Google, tell me what people are searching. And I think that's the help of a team and a partner. Like, you can't be an expert at everything. So having y'all come in and having that conversation has made our organization better. So it hasn't been just a grant, but a good conversation for us to have.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. PJ Dunn, for sharing your experience, not only with Google Ad Grants, but with Rank Monsters. I hope that everyone here got something out of that, and also could see how this could possibly work for you and your nonprofit as well. We're going to go through a few slides, kind of just a quick overview on topics specifically to ad grants. And then we're going to get to the question and answer portion of today. Does that sound good? So there was an ad grants eligibility question, and we do have it here in this presentation. I talked about it a little bit earlier. You need to be a 501c3 nonprofit, have a high quality website with your 501c3 status in the footer, and then also agree to Google's non-discrimination and donation use policies. We work with several Christian organizations, and honestly, this third point here is up to their individual organization, how they want to proceed with that question. Eligibility exceptions. This is not for government entities or organizations, not for hospitals. However, we do service a lot of medical clinics or nonprofit medical clinics, STI and STD clinics, and not for schools. However, we do work with some schools in some capacities, basically if they're giving grants. So we work with their foundations. Applying for grants, I did mention this. You can absolutely apply for ad grants on your own. And to do that, you're going to go to google.com/nonprofits, and that's where you're going to get started and walk through the application process there. Also, when you go through that application process, you will get training and resources to read about eligibility and keeping your ad grant compliant. So ad grants best practices, obviously this is kind of the discovery meeting process. And it starts with identifying what keywords you think you want to target, right? Figuring out what those are. Because if you come to the table with, well, we have a camp coming up or an event, or we want to reach this type of person in our community, you have a general idea of the types of keywords, then you can really get into being creative. Because where the ad grant really works is with creativity. And like PJ mentioned, loneliness. Well, in his ministry, empowering singles in Christ and meeting with singles and also church leaders, you wouldn't really think of the word loneliness, right? But that's actually one of his top performing keywords, and he's getting conversions from it. So that's where the creativity comes in. $10,000 is a lot to spend. So you're going to need more than 2 ad groups, more than 3 ad groups. You're going to need 10 to 20 to 30 to 40 ad groups targeting different types of keywords, because ad groups need to be specific to the keyword you're targeting and the landing page you're sending the user too. So best practices here are just identifying keywords, getting creative with your keywords. How else can I reach my target audience in a different way, a different type of keyword, especially one that might not be targeted as much by paid advertisers, right? Because the Google ad grant is free money. So either we're competing with paid advertisers for expensive ad space, and we need to have a high quality ad campaign, or we're getting the keywords that not as many advertisers are bidding on, right? Inventory that's not used, but we're using it and getting conversions from it. And then also you want to have a good landing page. You want them to land there and it be relevant to what they were searching, and they know that they've landed at a resource where they can get answers or connect with for what the topic was that they were searching. And then of course, tracking your performance. Google Tag Manager and analytics is needed for applying for your Google Ad Grants campaign. So you need to be able to track your conversion metrics. Not only do you need to have conversion tracking available on your website, conversion opportunities, such as a form or a newsletter or a survey or a phone number, but you need to be tracking them as well. And so that's what Tag Manager and Google Analytics is. And once you have those established and connected to your website, you then have to import that into your Google ad campaign. I have some information about maximizing the ad grant, and it's just what we talked about. It's what we've been talking about. And it's reaching your audience in a creative way and sending them to a landing page that connects with them. And then having that meaningful conversion on that landing page, not just a button that they click the contact page and go to, but try to have something on the landing page that you're sending them to. I have some conversion best practices, and I spoil alerted because I already told you about them. But this is really for nonprofits that are wanting to get donations from the ad grant. The ad grant actually works best to connect with your target audience. So like with singles or with church leaders, cultivating a relationship. As far as getting a donation from a click from an ad and then them becoming a donor, that's less likely unless they already know your organization and they already have a relationship with you. So if your goal is to raise donations, we're going to help you come up with micro conversion opportunities, such as the ones we already kind of talked about. And then if you are here and you have a campaign that is running, an ad campaign that is running, it's not suspended, but it's just not performing well. There are several reasons this could be. We try to highlight some of the main reasons. One, ad groups need to have a specific keyword target. If you have multiple ad groups that are targeting the same type of keyword, your campaigns, neither ad group will perform to the best of its ability. So you just really need to look at the structure of your campaigns and ad groups. Also, the click-through rate that we talked about. If your ad groups have lower than a 5% click-through rate, you can get your ad or your account suspended, but also it hinders the overall performance of your campaign, right? Because Google is thinking they're advertising for keywords that either aren't relevant to the audience that they're targeting, or their ad isn't compelling enough to get clicked on, right? And so you just want to make sure that you have a high quality campaign. If you're not in compliance with Google's ad policies, your campaign might not be suspended, but it will not perform well. And so you just really need to have a good structure to your ad campaign. Basically, to do step one, and that's spin the ad grant and get part of the impression share. PJ, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just want to say this is so much harder if you've never done Google ad campaigns. Like even if you've done one or two, like I don't know if anybody wants to chat and say they've done it and they think they're an expert. I just know that it is like 10 levels deep is how I describe it. So you think, oh, I'll get a picture. Oh, I'll get a couple words. Maybe I'll make a couple variations. But really, you're drilling into keywords and drilling and variations. And it is so much harder to build an ad campaign and maintain it than you would think. And so obviously I messed it up. So again, like I feel very seen right now, Ashley. You keep saying like sometimes people mess it up. Like that is definitely me. But that's why you need help. And you offer different levels of help for that reason, depending on what people want to partner or not partner. And that makes your company unique as well.
Yes, absolutely. And that leads right into my next slide perfectly. So we really love to educate nonprofits about the ad. We would love everyone to use it. It is a great opportunity to really further your mission. It is hard to structure and to start getting results with. However, we would love to see everybody be able to use it. So we've created packages that we hope allows us to work with as many nonprofits as possible. And we really do our best to educate the nonprofits that we work with on how to manage it themselves if that's their desire, if that's what fits in with their goals. And so one of the packages we offer is Monster Launch, and it's a $1,500 one-time fee. We'll apply for the ad grant for your organization. If you already have the ad grant, this still works for you perfectly because it just gives us more time to work on your campaign. It's basically 6 to 8 weeks with our company where we lay everything out. We get your campaign up and running based on your initial goals, like we did with PJ. And as you could see, he was spending that $10,000 a month within the first 3 months. So with this package, we get everything laid out and structured the way that it should be for a well-performing campaign. And then we train your team how to maintain it from there. This is good for organizations that have people in-house who can manage it because you have to continue to manage it. You're going to need to watch over the ad groups to make sure they're staying at the 5% click-through rate. There's things that you're going to need to do so that it doesn't get suspended. But that's absolutely an option. And also, you can always come back to us at any time should you need help, right? Even send us an email, ask us a question. We try to be as available as possible. We also try to give people free advice as much as possible. However, it's very hard for us to do that in a lot of scenarios without actually seeing the campaign, seeing the website, seeing the conversions, and spending time to work on it. Like we usually can't just look at something and in 30 minutes or an hour completely diagnose it. We've got to see multiple moving parts in order to, one, know how to make it perform better, or two, fix something that's a problem. So if you do Monster Launch and we turn it over to you, that's great. You also have a choice to do our Monster Maintenance from there, which is where you continue your partnership with us and we maintain compliance. And you can talk to us and interact with our team. So if you're managing it in-house, we make sure that the campaign stays compliant and that it doesn't get suspended. And we alert you to any issues or certifications that need to be completed.
Ashley, let me ask you a question. And Isaac actually wrote this in here, but like, what do you think the type of conversion you feel is most effective? Like donate, subscribe, like contact forms, like what do you think is the most effective conversion?
Contact form is really our most completed conversion.
Yeah.
However, surveys work very well as well.
Yeah. We did a how single are you survey for a while. And that was like really fun. And like people would go post and be like, oh, you're a cat lover, right? And you're like, oh no, right? Like those were fun for a while, but like we're using the form. And for us, if we can get a conversation, we know that we have a chance at being able to help that organization. And so the form has been really effective for us. Like we went from organically getting, 2 to 3 forms a month and still getting, pretty good leads from those to now, somewhere around 20 to 30 forms a month. And well over half of those are real conversations of people that aren't just accidental. And that's why we're seeing such an X factor on our forms, just that forms part of our website. And so I think about like a local church and that guest, like in finding that real guest who's seeking, for I'm lonely in, their town and using those keywords and being able to fill out a form or can you pray for me? I need prayer and, those kind of things. And so that form really is pretty powerful, however you want to use it.
Absolutely. Well, then our last package is our Monster Impact, which is $400 a month. And that is just a monthly partnership with us. We do ask for a 6-month agreement. After that, it's month to month. But yeah, so there's different options to work with us. But again, I want to stress that you absolutely can apply for the ad grants on your own. And you can always feel free to reach out to us, and we will give you as much guidance and send you resources as we can. We also do hold workshops that are more kind of technical in structuring ad campaigns and managing your ad campaign. And so we will invite you to that as well. I forgot almost. So everyone attending today, if you do want to use our services, we are offering 20% off of any of our packages. So the one-time fee or the monthly partnership, either one. And so to get started with us, you actually purchase on our website. You also can feel free to reach out to us, and we'll schedule a meeting and we'll walk you through this process. But you purchase directly from our website the package that you would like to do. And then at checkout, you can enter the coupon code IMPACT to get 20% off. So even if it's a recurring partnership with us at $400 a month, you will receive 20% off. So it's a great savings over time. And then again, if you're not ready to get started, you're not sure, you want to have questions, we'd love to meet with you one-on-one, even review your campaign together if you already have a campaign.
Actually, I know we're landing the plane. And so Tyler asked 2 really good questions.
Okay.
And one is, hey, call me, Tyler, or email me, and I'd love to talk to you about the terms of service and how we did that as a faith-based organization and how we navigated those waters, but felt like we were able to still use the ad grant in a very meaningful way. But he asked about organization size too. So like, what's your smallest organization that y'all work with? And I'm probably the smallest. So what's the largest organization you work with?
Oh my goodness. It might be, I don't know, because we work with, like I already mentioned, Voice of the Martyrs, Museum of the Bible, but we also work with a lot of other larger nonprofits. There's a national engineering firm that we work with, but yeah, really all sizes, down to organizations that are your size, PJ, and then also local clinics. We work with the Oklahoma City Ballet. We work with a lot of museums, arts and entertainment, education, all different types of nonprofits.
Yeah, Brooke was asking specifically for Catholic charities. I think that answer would be yes, correct?
Yes, we do work with Catholic charities. Yes. So
you could use memes in the chat. I feel like memes are better than like emojis, but I'd be like double thumbs up to Brooke and Pastor Ed.
I wanted to make sure everybody knew how to get a hold of Dr. PJ Dunn. So I wanted to share this last screen with you so you could take down his, and I've got maybe my thing in front of it.
Oh, no.
His email. Yes.
You're good.
But I will be sending this deck to everybody because it has resources and links out to Google and to the eligibility and to the questions and all of that so that you can do some discovery on your own.
Definitely happy to help everybody. Like, this is what I get to do, and it's pretty cool how I get to serve the Lord. And so I genuinely mean that. Like, conversations are what I love having. I'm an extroverted extrovert, and I'm unashamed of that because extroverts would be. So I always love meeting somebody and saying hello, and like, we've gotten to be friends through this too, Ashley, even before doing this recording. And so again, thank you for the opportunity to kind of talk about Table for One and reaching singles, and appreciate your time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So Isaac, do we have some questions that weren't answered yet that we can go ahead and ask?
We do, yeah. So let's try to punch these out real fast. I'll be succinct when I read them. And then if we could keep our answers maybe kind of short too, just to be respectful of everybody's time, because we're coming up on about an hour. Sylvia asked a great question. Sylvia, I believe you had to bounce. That's totally cool. But she has a good question for people that are going to watch this later. She asked, because she's part of the church world, she asked if congregation size matters in application. So does that matter? Or is it just does the 501c3 actual head count or fundraising total matter at all?
No, it does not. Okay. It's basically one ad grant per EIN number. But once you're approved for the ad grant, we can use it to advertise multiple websites that are associated with that organization. So if you have a camp website or something else outside of your main website, we can advertise for that as well.
Okay, that's great. And it actually brings me to Paul's question. Paul asked, if you are required to point the Google ad to a website landing page, or if they could be pointed to a social media platform.
It will need to be an approved website.
Okay, perfect. And then let's see here. Actually, I had a couple questions selfishly to ask, because the Google Ads platform encompasses a lot of places. I don't know, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, there's Google search, there's YouTube, there's a display network, there's a lot of stuff kind of baked into that one platform. So I would like to know, if you have the ad grant, where are your ads eligible to be shown?
It's for Google text ads only. So it's the ads that are at either the top of the search result, and sometimes they're also at the bottom of the search result.
Okay. I believe that was the last of the questions in the chat. So I do want to make time for anybody who's brave enough to ask a question. I have one more. PJ, you talked about it a little bit. Two more, sorry. One, sorry, is good. So number one, you can apply for the grant. And then, like you said, PJ went from like it being suspended to like 6,000 and 10,000. What should a nonprofit expect as far as like how do they get up to 10,000? Like how much do they get on the first month? What impacts the amount of the grant they're given? Because I know it varies. I have no idea what impacts how much they receive. Would love to hear kind of how that works.
Yes. So once you're approved, you receive the $10,000 monthly grant. It's essentially $329 per day. You get that amount every month. So if you don't spend it all, you don't spend it all. If you spend it all, great. You actually can sometimes go over the $10,000 because it's $329 per day. The other thing to mention is once you're approved, it's not just for a year. You continue to get it month after month. We've been managing some of our ad grants since 2012, 2013, and they've had it this entire time. That's a huge amount of grant money that they've received for free ads.
Okay, next question, and I know you talked about this a little bit with the contact form and stuff. So you mentioned that you send someone to a website through an ad. There's intention there. End of the day, you want, especially if you're a nonprofit, probably some kind of human connection. So there are a lot of different things that can fall under that umbrella of what's a conversion, right? Could be, and it probably depends on who you're sending and like what the ad's about. But like you could do like the final destination is to donate money straight up. Could be to sign up for a newsletter. Could be to participate in an event. Could be a contact form, whatever. I'd be really curious to hear, because you've got like $10,000 a month. I feel like you could be a little bit more loosey-goosey on like there's not as much pain if you like ruined it on the wrong kind of conversion. So what do you feel like is the most effective way overall to focus on the conversion? Like what works best quantitatively for the ad grant funds?
If you're talking about the conversion that is completed the most, is that what you're asking?
Yeah. What do you feel like gets the most? What type of call to action gets the most conversions for a nonprofit? It's
the form, the form on the landing page that is getting the most. So it's either their general contact form and the type of form that works the best is actually where they're able to leave their name, phone number, email. There might be a question that asks what their interest is, so you can identify that, but then allow them to leave a message as well. That's really the conversion action that we get the most completions of. That results in a meaningful conversion for our customers. And even if their intent is forming a relationship with a donor, that's a great way for them to make that initial relationship connection to then bring them in to whatever kind of campaign they have going on from there. Anybody brave enough to raise their hand and ask a question live? Any questions at all? Okay, I have one more just because I know there's a person or two here in their ministry. So can you use the ad grant? Like, let's say you have, because this is a church ministry context, let's say you have like an international missions fund and they want to raise money for their main organization and they want to raise funds for the individual smaller entities that are like international. Like, is there a way that the ad grant with staying in compliance can raise funds for the HQ plus all the little entities that are all over the place? Like, what would that look like? Yeah, absolutely. And if they have different EIN numbers, we actually work with several organizations in other countries, such as Finland, Australia, Canada. But yeah, so if their main organization here is advertising and raising funds, raising donations, they can distribute that however they want, and then if the other organizations have their own EIN number, we can apply for the Google ad grant for their organization and they can use the ad grant as well.
But Isaac, one thing that came up in ours, Ashley, was one of the feedback was, are you a nonprofit or not? And so one of the things that Google asked us to do was to put that statement in the footer and to make it look like words like donate were on there more prominently than check out. And so I was like, oh, that's good feedback. Like, I'm not going to get offended by that. And so we made some adjustments to our page to better reflect it, even though that was kind of a requirement on our end.
And that leads me into my statement was, outside of raising donations, if you have a store on your website where you sell shirts or products or anything like that, we have several nonprofits that also use this ad grant for those types of landing pages.
Anybody else have any final questions? Now's your last opportunity to ask. All right, that's it.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today.